Greetings and salutations. Hey, it's been a while since we talked about the show Sliders. But this time I'm looking at an episode called Virtual Slide. So what happened in this episode was the Sliders arrive where virtual reality is a normal part of life. And then, Maggie, she gets hurt and then wakens up in the hospital to find that they had missed the slide. I'll be honest and say, this one of the things that, yes, I like sliders, but I'll be honest and say one thing that can be hard when it comes to, as of recently, in the past, I would try to use the clips to get, instead if you hadn't watched the episode, or in such, that way you could get a better understanding of it by seeing, what the episode was about and such. However, I wasn't able to really do that for this one. But I gotta say this episode was pretty good. If I'm gonna be looking at, say, some of the analysis of this episode, I think the episode does a pretty good job in that, one of the things the episode does, it gives off the idea of VR as this, drug addiction. Say, there are several sequences, when Maggie, she is under the VR and all that such, there's a sequence in which, she believes that, Quinn and Rembrandt, they are the ones that are under the spell of the VR, so they're the ones that have gone crazy. Quinn, he seems to be having a dream about Maggie, and then, Rembrandt, he seems to have finally gotten extremely successful. He's gotten all the record labels. He now has a family and such. And I gotta say, one of the things that made this interesting, too, is in that, we learned in this episode that Rembrandt had, in the past, he had a bit of a falling out with his mother. And, she told him, hey, one of the things that is about being successful is at the same time having a sense of family and such. And, yeah, I can say I thought this episode was pretty good. Another thing this episode does, the idea of addiction, there's a sequence in which, Maggie is, feeling, okay, we need to figure out how to create a new slide technology, a new device, because of what happens, the bad guy who is, feeding into her head that they need to create one, but she doesn't realize it's for the bad guy, and such. So, she created one, but what ended up happening is, in the VR world, she thinks that, it's Rembrandt and Quinn who are the ones who are losing it. So she ends up destroying the VR helmets in the VR world and such. And I did kind of see some of the ideas that they're going, so if there's a sequence in which they put a bad nightmares into the folks using the VR, because at first when the folks that are on VR, it's almost in a daze, and such. They're just what? There's even a sequence when they're making delivery, and they're using the VR just to get there, because their mind has been so engraved into that escapism with the VR. Anyway, but even though they're doing their jobs and such, it's almost escape from the mundaneness of it all. At least that's how I perceived this episode. I thought this episode was not too bad. It was fairly engaging. The actors all do a fairly good job. The dramaticism of it was overall fairly well done. It wasn't too bad of an episode. At least that's how I viewed it. See you next time.